Hey guys, it's Sam here, and I wanted to talk today about Forest because 2 months ago I made the video that was titled Forest Sack Sean Dyche, and I, like the majority of people, especially non-Forest fans, were slightly confused about the sacking, not really agreeing with it, believing that they probably should have stuck with him, and that Sean Dyche knows how to get teams out of a relegation battle. He knows the relegation fight, knows what it takes to keep teams up, and it seemed like a massive gamble. But you have to say, fourth time's the charm, because the gamble has paid off massively. Because what Vitor Pereira has done in such a short space of time is unbelievable. The way that Forest play now, it's very reminiscent of last season when they were blowing teams away, blowing the league away, completely blowing everyone away with, you know, the fact that no one expected them to be up at the top end of the table. And it's very reminiscent. You've got players playing with confidence again, you've got free-flowing goals, and again, you have to say that it has paid off. Marinakis, whatever he does, eventually he gets it right. And I, like everyone else, have to hold our hands up and say, we got it massively wrong. We didn't believe that Marinakis was making the right decision. I was all for Marinakis stepping away as owner. In that video I spoke that it seemed like it was coming to an end, that he didn't really know what he was doing anymore, making really rash decisions. But you have to say, it has massively paid off eventually. You know, fourth manager in, they've eventually found their lane. And they are, you would say, even though mathematically they're not safe, they are safe. The win against Chelsea yesterday, for me, cemented that place, because Tottenham won, West Ham lost. You say if Forest had lost, although they were 3 points above West Ham, but because of the goal difference, massively in favour of Forest, it was technically 4 points. Because now, especially with the win over Chelsea, I think Forest's goal difference from West Ham's is like 17 goals. West Ham are not scoring 17 goals in the last 3 games. Forest are definitely not going to concede 17 goals in the last 3 games. So they're all but safe. And in that video I did also mention that I was convinced that Leeds would go down because Daniel Farke has never kept a team in the Premier League. Again, got that wrong. Fair play to Daniel Farke, he really has completely, I wouldn't say blown me away, because Leeds have been quite average for large parts of the season, but he has completely, you know, I completely underestimated him as a Premier League manager. I just didn't think he had it in him. Fair play, he does seem to have it in him, and he's kept Leeds up. So, fair play to him, but this isn't about Leeds. This is about Pereira, and especially Forest, because I have had, I wouldn't say the privilege, it's yeah, my dad's taken me to 3 games in the last 2 weeks. I've gone with him. He took me to the Porto game, the Burnley game, and then the Villa game, the first leg of the semi-final. So I watched 3 games of Forest in 2 weeks, and seeing them actually in person and understanding kind of, when you're there, you see more of the game than you do on a screen, you know? The camera's obviously following the ball, mainly, and focused on kind of the main action. When you're there, you see the whole thing, and the way that Pereira has set his team up, the way that Forest play, the way that they press, the way that some of the players do not stop running for the 490. They weren't doing that under Dyche. They definitely weren't doing that under Ange. So what he's done is he has transformed these players back into a team not only full of confidence, but a team that's, even when they're 5-0 up against Sunderland, they're still running around chasing everything like it's 0-0 or like they're chasing a goal. That is a team that is not just full of the confidence, that has their confidence back. It's a team that is free. They're like a team that their shackles have been broken and they're free. They're not restricted to one position or one style of play like they were under Dyche. Pereira has them free. You see Gibbs White, for instance. The amount of freedom he now has, he's not restricted to this one area, to this one position, to this one role like he was under Dyche. He's now a free-flowing attacking midfielder, winger, striker, defender. Like, he's just free. I think what Pereira has done is he's gone in there, realised the talent the squad has, and gone, how the fuck are you not performing to the levels that you should be? Just go out and play. Like, yeah, you've got your positions, but you're not restricted. The wingers are swapping ends, the fullbacks are swapping. You've got players, free roaming around where it's almost impossible to defend that. Because you can't man mark him, because he's all over the place, and you're just going to leave too many holes in your defence if you man mark him. But then, because you've got players so many areas of the pitch in such a short space of time, defenders have not got a clue who to mark. And it's very, very difficult to defend. It's very reminiscent of Jurgen Klopp under Liverpool, when he had Mane, Firmino, Salah, all free roaming, all going around the front three, not really having a position. They were just told, just go out and play, be free, and it caused defenders so many issues. And that is exactly what Pereira is doing with so many of these Forest players. Allowing them to just go out there and be free. Just play football. Play football. Enjoy it. And ultimately, you play as a team. You're a unit. You work hard. You get your rewards. And that is what is happening. Under Dyche, could you have seen them getting past Fenerbahce? No. Could you have seen them beat Sunderland 5-0? No. Could you have seen them beat Chelsea? No. Chelsea were awful yesterday. They were. But you give credit to the opposition as well for being able to capitalise on an awful team. Playing very, very well. Again, the Burnley game is a prime example of what kind of a manager Pereira is compared to the rest they've had this season. Is they were awful in that first half. They didn't deserve to be 1-0 down, to be fair. No one deserved to be in front at half time. Both Burnley and Forest were awful. But Burnley go in at the break 1-0 up. Pereira makes the change to go 2 up top, and that completely changes the second half. Like, Forest just dominate from start to finish that second half and comfortably win 4-1, and it could have been a lot more than 4-1. You know, that's the type of manager that you want. A manager that understands not only has he made a mistake to start off with, he can correct it at half time and completely change the course of the game and end up winning very, very comfortably. You know, would Dyche have done that? No. Would Ange have done that? No. You know, you've got a manager there now in Pereira that you can build on. And one thing that I will say is that, especially under Marinakis, but probably for the last 15, 18, maybe even possibly going into 20 years, Forest have not had managers that long. I think the average spell, the lifespan of a Forest manager is probably, you won't find many that probably last 18 months. You won't find many that even last 12 months. You're probably looking at about maybe 6 to 8 months for a lot of these managers. Especially when they were down fighting relegation in the Championship, they seemed to chop change managers a lot. And I think they went through a spell where they had I think it was 9 managers in 4 years or something crazy like that. It was mental. And you realise that you can't, not only is that not sustainable, you're not going to get anything from it. You're not going to get success from it. I think under Marinakis that started again, the rhythm of chop change. But eventually, he finds the man in Cooper. He gets them up. He then keeps them up. Unfortunately, once you've done that, you expect to kind of, you would expect to start making progress. It wasn't looking likely, so he ends up sacking Cooper, and you get Nuno in, and then Nuno gets you to European football. The fallout happens. He then gets sacked. Ange was way too soon. He's even come out and said it. You know, he took the Forest job way too soon after being sacked from Spurs. He needed a break, and he took it too early. He's admitted that, and it was a mistake from both parties, really. One, to offer Ange the job. Two, for him to accept. He gets sacked. Dyche comes in. Again, you know, things happen, or at least things don't happen, which was the reason for him to get sacked. And then you go to Pereira, who has completely changed it, changed the way they play. They play so much better football. They look like the team that they were last season. And like I said, you've got now a manager that you can build on. And although this is where you kind of are a little bit you're a little bit concerned, potentially, regarding the fact that whenever they seem to want to build a project around a manager, something seems to go wrong. So yeah, something seems to go wrong, and it's usually the manager has a falling out with either Marinakis or a recruitment team, and it breaks down, and eventually, you know, he gets sacked. What they can't have is this happening again. You know, you've now got a manager that you can build on. You have to build on that, because you don't want to be again in the situation where you're in the relegation fight. They shouldn't be near a relegation zone. Their squad is way too talented for this. Their squad was talented enough to get to the Europa League and get to a Europa League semi-final and win the first leg 90 minutes away from a European final. The squad's massively better to then be in a relegation fight. So they now have the manager. They now have to build with this manager. Allow this manager to have his ideas. You know? And I think that not only would it be smart to do that, you would also look at potentially making more European adventures, potentially winning trophies, because that's what Marinakis wants. You know, Marinakis now, it was get Forest to the Premier League. Once it was there, it was, you know, staying in the Premier League, consolidating in the Premier League, and now they've been there for 4 years. It's about winning trophies. He's always ambitious, and it's all well and good having that as an owner, you know, an ambitious owner. But you've got to back that up with your decisions as well. And that's by keeping managers there long enough to build a project so that you can win things. And Pereira, in a short space of time, could go on to win the Europa League. That would be massive. But even if he doesn't, the foundations are there now. You know? I don't think they're miles away from a trophy. Remember, they got to the FA Cup semi-final last season under Nuno. They got to a European semi-final this season under Pereira. They're not a million miles away. And yes, they could lose Anderson. They could lose Murillo. But they've got an owner now. They've got what Pereira didn't have at Wolves is that Wolves had sold their best players and didn't replace them. And that's what really annoys me at the minute when people say, well, this season it went wrong for Pereira at Wolves. That doesn't tell the whole picture. They sold Cunha and Ryan Aït-Nouri, two of their best players last season, without replacing them. What did you think was going to happen? Even Jurgen Klopp couldn't work magic at Wolves with that. You know, Wolves' squad is shit. It is awful. It was awful last season, but you had the individual brilliance that got them over the line. You get rid of them, you're just left with a full shit squad with no individual brilliance. What did you think was going to happen? This time, for Pereira, he's at Forest where an owner will spend the money. They're going to get a hell of a lot of money for those two players. Potentially close to, if not, maybe bang on, maybe even over 200 million for those players. Anderson and Murillo, just two players that you're bound to get at least to 180. Because Anderson, 100, Murillo, at least 80, possibly even more. So you're looking at 180 million just on two players that you could easily invest. Not just in those two players, not just in those two positions that you've lost, but in some of the other positions as well. He's at a club now where they will spend. Forest spend money. Marinakis spends money. And that is a good thing for Pereira, because he's not going to have the same situation that he had last summer with Wolves, where your best players get sold and then the owner goes, no, we're fine. You're fine. We don't need to replace them. No, you're fine. Go and do what you did last season with this shit. You've got a pile of shit. Do what you did last season with it. Like, no, that's not going to work. And then, like, yeah, I can't, okay, I just can't. Then you look now where he is. He will have his say. Obviously, Edu is leaving, or has already left. I have not got a clue. Marinakis has to make sure that he now makes the right decision in the recruitment. Number one, you have to make sure you get the right sporting director in. You know, that's clear. Edu, it was a failure. It went horribly wrong, and yeah, he's gone after a year. So he has to make sure that he gets this next sporting director spot on, where him, the sporting director and the manager can all work together and make the right signings, make the right decisions for the club. Because if they do that, Pereira could have a pretty long spell at Forest. Yes, it's early days. Yes, of course, when you're in a scrap and a new manager comes in, you can get that new manager bounce and everything starts feeling good, and then eventually it fizzles out. I don't think that's going to happen with Pereira. I really, really don't, because he's already adored by the fans. The players really seem to like him and really get behind what he's saying and what he's trying to do, and the manager seems to really enjoy it. You've got all that combination. You've got the perfect recipe to make success. You just cannot add the wrong ingredient now. You can't end up doing that again. They did that with Nuno. They can't afford to make that mistake again with Pereira, because this really can work, and it can be a long, successful spell. Pereira could be the longest serving Forest manager for a very, very long time. I don't think he has to get far to do that. I think if he gets to 3 years, he's probably been there longer than a manager in like the last 30 years probably. Who knows? But anyway, if he does that, I feel like there is success in there. You look at what he's done to certain players as well. Hutchinson looked like an absolutely awful signing. Since Pereira's come in, you're seeing the glimpses and you're seeing the talent that Hutchinson has, he is playing with freedom. He is playing like someone that does have confidence. You look at Bakwa, again, someone that looked like a terrible signing. I mean, yesterday he was unbelievable. And I don't think he's really done much wrong under Pereira. James McAtee as well. Looked like a really bad signing. But again, under Pereira, you're seeing the talent and you're seeing glimpses of what he can offer. The future is very, very bright. Let's not forget, they signed young players last summer. So these players could be there for the next 5, 6 years. And really grow as a squad, as a unit. And if you have the right manager in place, which it looks like they do, you have to make sure that you give that manager the affection and the... Look, it's not give the manager everything he wants, because that's unrealistic. It's the same way with a player. You know, you can't give the player everything he wants, but you compromise. If Marinakis and Pereira can compromise massively, like I said, this could be a long, successful period for Forest and for Pereira at Forest. You just do worry because they don't have that track record. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there. Unbelievable what Pereira is doing. Forest seem all but safe and could be, by Thursday, in a European final. I mean, you couldn't have even thought that when they were losing week in, week out under Ange. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please have a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.